I need you, the most feared man in Chicago said, swaying on Elena Rossi's doorstep with blood on his white shirt and rain sliding from his black hair. Elena stared at him through the narrow opening, one hand gripping the chain lock, the other clutching the robe over her soft, full figure. It was 2:13 in the morning, and Dante Moretti, the Mafia Boss whose name could silence entire restaurants, was standing outside her modest apartment as if he had nowhere else in the world to go. "Mr. Moretti?" she whispered. "You're drunk." His dark eyes lifted to hers. Even unfocused, they carried the cold authority that made powerful men lower their voices. That doesn't change what I said. 24 hours earlier, Elena had been balancing champagne glasses at the Moretti Foundation's winter gala, trying to disappear beneath the crystal lights of a downtown hotel. At 31, she had learned how cruel elegant rooms could be to women who did not fit inside elegant dresses. Her black uniform pinched at her waist, her feet ached, and the catering manager had warned her that one mistake would cost her the job she needed to pay her mother's medical bills. Elena was chubby, working class and exhausted, but she was also observant, loyal, and stubbornly kind. Those qualities had never earned her much attention. That night, however, they earned the attention of the wrong woman and the most dangerous man in the room. Vanessa Hale, a thin socialite wearing a silver gown and Dante's family ring for an engagement neither of them seemed happy about, stopped Elena near the ballroom stairs. "Careful," Vanessa said loudly, looking Elena up and down. "Some dresses are designed for serving trays, not wearing them." Several guests laughed. Elena's cheeks burned, but she kept her chin level. "I'm here to work, ma'am, not to compete with anyone." Vanessa's smile tightened. She deliberately struck Elena's tray. 6 champagne glasses crashed across the marble floor. The room turned. The manager rushed forward and grabbed Elena's arm. "You're fired." She didn't drop them, a deep voice said. Every conversation died. Dante Moretti stood 20 feet away beneath the gold chandelier, dressed in a tailored black suit, his expression carved from ice. At 38, he controlled shipping companies, luxury properties, and a criminal empire whispered about from Chicago to New York. He was wealthy, guarded, and feared for never forgiving betrayal. Yet the loneliness behind his eyes was something newspapers never captured. Elena saw it because she knew what it looked like to stand in a crowded room and still be completely alone. Dante crossed the floor slowly. He did not look at the broken glass. He looked at the manager's fingers around Elena's wrist. "Take your hand off her." The man released her immediately. Vanessa laughed nervously. "Dante, this is ridiculous. She's just a waitress." His gaze sharpened. "Her name is Elena Rossi." Elena's breath caught. She had never introduced herself to him. Dante turned to the manager. "She keeps her job. You lose yours." Then he ordered someone to bring Elena a chair because he had noticed her limping. That small act frightened her more than his power. Powerful men had looked at her before, but usually only to judge what they saw. Dante looked as if he were reading what she tried to hide. Later, Elena found him alone on a shadowed balcony, gripping the stone railing while music drifted through the glass doors. "You should go back inside," he told her. "So should you," she replied. No one spoke to Dante Moretti that way. His mouth almost curved. Then Elena noticed a waiter approaching behind him with 2 drinks and a hand trembling too hard for someone carrying an ordinary tray. She saw the tiny packet disappear into one glass. Without thinking, she stepped forward and knocked it from Dante's hand. The crystal shattered against the balcony wall. Guards drew weapons. Guests screamed. The waiter ran. Dante caught Elena before she slipped on the wet floor, one arm firm around her waist, his face inches from hers. "Why did you do that?" "Because someone had to." For one suspended second, the ruthless Mafia Boss held her as if she were the only safe thing he had ever touched. Then his expression closed. He ordered his men to lock down the hotel and sent Elena home under protection. She believed the night was over. Now he stood at her door, rain-soaked, wounded, and carrying a secret that had followed him 3 miles through the storm. Elena unlatched the chain. "Come inside before someone sees you." Dante stepped across the threshold, but instead of moving farther, he leaned close and placed a small brass key in her palm. "They think I came here because you saved my life," he murmured. "They're wrong." Elena looked down at the key, then back at the blood spreading across his shirt. What does it open? His hand closed gently around hers. The proof that your father didn't die in an accident. Elena closed the door and turned the lock just as Dante's knees nearly gave way. "Sit down before you fall," she ordered, guiding him toward the worn brown couch beneath her apartment window. The feared Mafia Boss obeyed without argument, which frightened her more than if he had refused. Up close, she saw that the blood on his shirt came from a shallow cut beneath his ribs, while the glassy look in his eyes carried more than whiskey. "Someone drugged you," she said. Dante leaned back, studying her through heavy eyelids. "You noticed too much. It kept you alive once tonight." She fetched a first aid kit from the kitchen and knelt beside him. Her hands trembled as she unfastened the lower buttons of his shirt, but Dante did not touch her or make a joke. He simply watched her clean the wound, his powerful body perfectly still beneath her careful hands. When she flinched at the bruising around the cut, his voice softened. "It looks worse than it is." Elena gave him a sharp look. That is what people say when they are used to suffering alone. Something changed in his face. For a moment, the coldness disappeared, revealing a man exhausted from carrying an empire built on fear. Then headlights swept across the curtains. Elena froze. Dante reached inside his jacket, but she caught his wrist before he could draw the weapon hidden there. "Not in my home." His gaze dropped to her fingers around him. No one stopped Dante Moretti from doing anything, yet he slowly removed his hand from the gun. 3 black SUVs pulled up outside. Within seconds, heavy footsteps climbed the stairs. Elena stepped back, but Dante caught her hand. "They're mine." A knock sounded, followed by a controlled voice. "Boss, it's Marco." Dante did not release her until she nodded. When Elena opened the door, 4 men in dark coats filled the hallway. Marco Bellini, Dante's second-in-command, looked from his wounded boss to Elena's robe and immediately lowered his eyes with respect. "The hotel attacker is dead," Marco reported. "His car went into the river before we could question him." Dante's expression hardened. The drunken weakness vanished beneath the authority that ruled half the city. "Seal every Moretti property. Freeze Vanessa Hale's accounts. No one leaves Chicago without my permission." Marco hesitated. "Vanessa's father will consider that an act of war. Then he can learn what war costs." Elena stared at Dante. "You think Vanessa was involved? I think the poisoned glass was meant to make me helpless, not kill me." He looked at the brass key still resting in her palm. "And I think whoever planned it knew I had found your father's evidence." Marco's face changed. "You told her? She deserves the truth." Dante rose, unsteady but commanding. He ordered his men to wait downstairs, then shut the door himself, giving Elena a privacy no one expected from a man like him. He pointed toward the key. "There is a private deposit box at Lakefront Trust, number 317. Your father rented it under another name 3 days before he died." Elena's throat tightened. "My father was a city accountant. He had no connection to you. He audited a shipping company owned by my uncle." Dante's jaw flexed. "He discovered money moving through false medical charities, including the clinic treating your mother." Elena felt the room tilt. Her mother's bills had doubled without explanation, forcing Elena into 2 jobs and months of debt. Why would my father hide evidence instead of going to the police? Because one detective was already being paid to watch him. Dante reached into his coat and handed her a small photograph protected by plastic. It showed her father outside a warehouse, speaking to a much younger Dante beneath a street lamp. Elena looked up in disbelief. "You knew him. He saved my life 12 years ago." Dante's voice dropped. "He warned me that my uncle planned to have me killed. I promised to protect him in return." "But you didn't." The words struck harder than a slap. Dante accepted them without defense. "No, I arrived 6 minutes too late." Elena turned away, fighting tears. She had spent years blaming bad weather and a reckless driver. Now the man standing in her living room was telling her that her father had died because he had chosen courage over silence. "Why come here drunk?" she asked. "Why not send your men?" Dante stepped closer but stopped before invading her space. "Because there are traitors in my house, Elena. I don't know who to trust." His eyes held hers. "And tonight, in a room full of people loyal to my money, you were the only person who protected me without asking what you would gain." Her anger faltered. He remembered her name, her limp, her mother's clinic, and the pain she tried to hide. Not because he pitied her, but because he had been watching carefully. A phone vibrated on the kitchen counter. It was Elena's. She picked it up and saw a photograph taken through her apartment window only seconds earlier. Dante stood behind her in the image, close enough to look intimate, vulnerable enough to look weak. Beneath it was a message from an unknown number. "Bring the key to Lakefront Trust before sunrise, or your mother will not survive the night." Dante read it over her shoulder, and every trace of warmth left his face. Then the lights in Elena's apartment went out. In the darkness, Dante pulled Elena behind him before the first shadow crossed her window. "Stay down," he said, his voice suddenly clear despite the drug still moving through his blood. A hard metallic scrape came from the fire escape, followed by the soft click of someone testing the window latch. Elena's apartment was small, with nowhere to hide except the narrow kitchen and the bedroom at the end of the hall. Dante reached for his gun again, but Elena pressed a finger to her lips and pointed toward the old radiator beside the wall. She grabbed a heavy iron valve key from beneath the sink, struck the pipe twice, and a violent burst of steam filled the living room. The window shattered inward. A masked man climbed through and immediately lost sight of them. Dante moved through the white fog with terrifying precision. He caught the intruder's wrist, forced the weapon away, and drove him against the wall without firing a shot. Elena kicked the fallen gun beneath the couch before the attacker could reach it. The man broke free, lunged toward her, and froze when Dante stepped between them. "You chose the wrong woman," Dante said. One controlled blow sent the attacker crashing into the coffee table. By the time Marco and the guards rushed upstairs, the intruder was unconscious, and Dante was standing in front of Elena with one arm extended as if his body alone could shield her from the entire city. Marco removed the attacker's mask, then went pale. "His name is Aaron Pike. He works security for the Hale family." Elena looked at Dante. "Vanessa sent him?" "Maybe," Dante answered, though something in his expression said the truth was worse. Pike carried no phone, no wallet, and no instructions, only a hospital access card bearing the name of Elena's mother's clinic. Elena's fear sharpened into anger. "We are going there now." Dante shook his head. "That message is designed to pull you into the open. My mother is alone, and you will not help her by walking into a trap. You don't get to decide that for me." The room went silent. Marco stared at the floor. Dante Moretti was not a man people challenged, especially not while he was wounded and surrounded by armed guards. But Elena stood in front of him with rainwater on her bare feet and fear trembling through her body, refusing to surrender the one person she had left. Dante studied her for a long moment, then removed his black coat and wrapped it around her shoulders. "You're right," he said quietly. "I don't decide for you, but I go with you." 20 minutes later, the Moretti convoy moved through empty Chicago streets beneath a cold silver rain. Elena sat beside Dante in the back seat, clutching the brass key, while city lights slid across his guarded face. He had changed into a clean shirt provided by Marco, but the bandage beneath it was already stained. "Why does Vanessa want the key?" Elena asked. "Her father built his political influence through charities connected to my uncle," Dante said. "If your father documented where the money went, the evidence could destroy them both." "Then why announce an engagement to her?" His jaw tightened. "It was an alliance arranged before my father died. I delayed it for years. But not forever." Dante looked at her. "Until tonight, I believed keeping my enemies close protected my family." Elena turned toward the rain-darkened window. "And now?" "Now they threatened yours." The clinic appeared ahead, its emergency entrance glowing beneath harsh fluorescent lights. Elena rushed inside with Dante beside her and 4 guards spreading through the lobby. At the front desk, a nurse claimed Elena's mother had been moved for routine testing, but Elena knew the woman's eyes were lying before she finished the sentence. "My mother cannot undergo testing without oxygen support," Elena said. "Where is she?" The nurse looked toward a security camera. Dante followed her gaze. Marco shut down the building. The doors locked. Elevators stopped. Patients were moved safely into supervised rooms while Dante's men searched each floor. Elena found her mother's empty wheelchair near a service corridor, one wheel still turning. On the seat lay a silver invitation embossed with a Hale family crest. Written across the back were 6 words: "Bring the key. Come without Dante." A phone rang inside the empty laundry room. Elena answered, and Vanessa's voice flowed through the speaker, calm and amused. "You have something my family needs, Elena. Where is my mother? Safe for now, but she becomes less safe every minute you stand beside him." Dante took the phone, his expression colder than the rain outside. "Release them both, Vanessa." "Both?" Elena's stomach dropped. Vanessa laughed softly. "He hasn't told you about the second hostage." A video appeared on Elena's phone. It showed Marco's younger brother bound to a chair inside an abandoned warehouse, with a digital clock counting down from 58 minutes. Beside him sat Elena's mother, frightened but alive. Vanessa stepped into the frame wearing the same silver gown from the gala. "Bring me the brass key before the clock reaches 0, she said. "Or Dante loses the loyal family he trusts, and Elena loses the only family she has." The video ended. Marco's face went rigid with pain, but Dante did not look away from Elena. "She expects us to divide," he said. "Then we don't," Elena replied. She opened her hand and revealed the key. "My father died because he tried to expose these people alone. I won't repeat his mistake." A guard suddenly entered the corridor carrying a sealed clinic envelope found inside the nurse's station. Dante tore it open. Inside was a photograph of Vanessa meeting with a Moretti soldier only 3 nights earlier. "The man's face—" "He does not want the key," Elena said, as Luca Moretti's face vanished from the clinic screens. "He wants me to believe the key is all I have." The countdown on her phone showed 51 minutes, but instead of panicking, Elena replayed the hostage video and held it close to the fluorescent light. Dante stood beside her, one hand pressed to his wounded side, his dark gaze fixed on every frame. Behind Vanessa, a rusted green pipe released steam every 12 seconds, and beyond the warehouse windows a red beacon flashed twice before disappearing. Elena's breathing changed. "South Harbour," she whispered. "Warehouse 14. My father used to take me there when I was a child." Marco stepped closer. "That building was demolished 6 years ago." "The front section was," Elena answered. "The cold storage rooms beneath it were left standing because the city found chemical contamination." Dante watched her with something deeper than surprise. Everyone else had seen a frightened waitress in an oversized black coat. He saw the intelligence she had hidden beneath years of being underestimated. "How certain are you?" he asked. "Certain enough to risk my life." His jaw hardened. "Your life is not a bargaining chip." "Neither is my mother's." Their eyes locked beneath the harsh clinic lights, neither willing to surrender. Then Dante lowered his voice, the way he did only with her. "We go together, but first we open the box." Marco objected that Lakefront Trust was 10 minutes in the opposite direction, yet Dante called the bank's private security director, and within 6 minutes the underground vault was waiting. The convoy raced along rain-soaked streets while the countdown fell to 39 minutes. Elena sat close to Dante, not because she trusted his world, but because the warmth of his shoulder kept her from shaking. "You knew my name before anyone told you," she said. "You knew about my father, my mother, even my limp. Why were you watching me?" Dante stared ahead. "Because I recognized you." "From where?" He did not answer until they entered the marble lobby of Lakefront Trust, where armed guards bowed their heads and led them below ground. Box 317 rested inside a private steel room under cold white light. Elena inserted the brass key, but the lock would not turn. Panic tightened her chest. Then she noticed 3 tiny numbers scratched beneath the key's handle. 8, 19, 14. "My birthday," she said. Dante pressed the matching sequence into a hidden panel and the box opened with a soft click. Inside lay a ledger, a digital recorder, an old red scarf, and a sealed letter addressed to Elena in her father's handwriting. Her fingers trembled as she unfolded it. "My brave girl, if you are reading this, Luca found me. Trust the man you saved in the snow. He owes you his life, even if he does not yet know your name." Elena looked up slowly. Dante had gone completely still. She lifted the red scarf from the box, and a memory returned with brutal clarity. A burning car overturned near the river 12 winters earlier. A young man trapped behind shattered glass, blood running down his face while snow covered the road. 19-year-old Elena had wrapped her scarf around his wound. dragged him away from the flames, and called for help before disappearing because her father had ordered her never to speak of what she saw. Dante reached for the scarf as if touching a ghost. You were the girl beside the river. You were in that car? Luca's men forced it off the road. His guarded face cracked with an emotion Elena had never seen in him. I searched for you for years. She swallowed hard. Is that why you protected me at the gala? No. He stepped closer, stopping inches away. It is why I noticed you. I protected you because they humiliated a woman who still chose to save a stranger. The tenderness in his voice nearly broke her. For years, Elena had believed men looked at her and saw something excessive, inconvenient, or easy to dismiss. Dante looked at her as if her courage had been the most unforgettable thing in his life. She opened the ledger. Every page documented stolen charity funds, bribed detectives, and payments authorized by Luca. The final entry contained proof that Luca had ordered the murders of both Elena's father and Dante's father. Marco's face went white. This could destroy him. Only if Elena authenticates the recorder, Dante said. The device activated when she spoke a childhood phrase written in the letter. Her father's voice filled the vault, tired but clear, naming Luca and describing where he had hidden the original financial records beneath Warehouse 14. The countdown showed 23 minutes. Then the vault lights flickered. A security guard outside screamed. Dante pulled Elena behind him as smoke poured beneath the steel door. Luca knew we would come here, Marco said. The fire alarm began howling. Dante tore a vent cover from the wall and ordered Elena into the service passage first. They crawled through smoke until the tunnel opened into the parking garage, where gunfire echoed between concrete pillars. Dante shielded Elena with his body as Marco returned fire. They reached the SUV, but Elena saw a small laser dot moving across Dante's chest. She shoved him aside. A dart struck her shoulder. Dante caught her before she hit the ground. Elena! Her vision blurred as masked men flooded from a maintenance van. She felt Dante fighting to hold her, heard his furious voice promising death to anyone who touched her, but the drug pulled her into darkness. When he opened his eyes seconds later, the garage was empty. Elena was gone, and her phone lay on the wet concrete. The screen lit with a live video from Warehouse 14. Elena sat bound beside her mother and Marco's brother, while Luca stood behind them holding the ledger she had risked everything to protect. The countdown had changed. 11 minutes remained. Then Luca placed a gun against Elena's heart and smiled into the camera. "Come alone, Dante," he said, "or the woman who saved your life dies first." Dante reached Warehouse 14 with 6 minutes left on the countdown and no visible weapon in his hands. Rain hammered the rusted roof as he stepped from the black SUV alone, his wounded side burning beneath his shirt and Elena's red scarf tied tightly around his wrist. Marco had begged him not to enter without backup, but Dante had already made his choice. His empire, his alliances, and every rule that had kept him alive meant nothing if Elena died behind those steel doors. Inside the abandoned cold storage chamber, yellow emergency lights flickered over cracked concrete and frozen pipes. Elena sat bound to a chair between her frightened mother and Marco's younger brother. Her shoulder ached from the dart, but her mind was clear. Luca stood behind her with a gun near her heart, while Vanessa watched from a metal platform in her silver gown, untouched by the dirt around her. 5 minutes, Luca announced as Dante entered. "Put your hands where I can see them." Dante raised them slowly. His dark eyes found Elena first, checking her breathing, the bruise on her shoulder and the rope cutting into her wrists. Only after he knew she was conscious did he look at his uncle. "Release them," Luca laughed. "You came here for a waitress. I came for Elena Rossi." The way Dante said her name changed the room. Not as property, not as a weakness. As someone whose life mattered enough to bring the most powerful man in Chicago to his knees. Vanessa descended the metal stairs, her face tight with humiliation. "You were supposed to marry me before midnight. My father's judges, Luca's ports, and your name would have controlled the city. There will be no marriage." Dante's answer was calm and final. "The agreement is finished." Vanessa stopped. "You would throw away an empire for her?" Dante looked directly at Elena. "An empire built by sacrificing innocent people deserves to fall." Elena's eyes filled, but she refused to let the tears drop. Luca pressed the weapon closer to her. Then, hand over the recorder. Dante removed it from inside his coat and placed it on the floor. You already have the ledger. Let them walk out. Luca ordered Vanessa to retrieve the device, but Elena noticed something neither of them did. The recorder's small red light was blinking. Dante had activated it before entering. Every confession in the warehouse was being transmitted somewhere. Vanessa picked it up and smiled. Now there is nothing left to prove. That is not true, Elena said. Luca struck the back of her chair with his hand. Be quiet. She lifted her chin. My father hid the original records beneath this building because he knew the ledger could be stolen. He wrote the location in a code only I can read. Luca's confidence cracked. Dante saw it and understood immediately. Elena was not merely buying time. She was forcing Luca to keep her alive. Where? Luca demanded. Release my mother and Marco's brother first. You're in no position to negotiate. Then you will never find the records. Vanessa stepped closer and grabbed Elena's face, but Dante's voice cut through the chamber. Touch her again, and this warehouse becomes your grave. Even unarmed, injured and surrounded by Luca's men, Dante sounded like the most dangerous person in the room. Vanessa withdrew her hand. The countdown reached 3 minutes. Luca ordered 2 guards to untie Elena's mother and Marco's brother, but as they moved, Elena spotted the reflection of Marco's team in a broken overhead mirror. Dante had come through the front alone, but he had never promised his men would stay outside. Elena twisted her wrists against the chair, feeling the small metal edge hidden beneath her sleeve. Before the kidnappers took her, she had slipped the brass key into her cuff. Now she used its teeth to saw through the rope. Tell me the code, Luca demanded. My father's last entry, Elena replied. The one about Dante's father. Luca leaned closer. What did it say? Elena stared into his eyes. That you were always afraid of men stronger than you, so you murdered them from behind. Luca's face darkened. He raised the gun, and Elena moved. She tore one hand free, drove the brass key into the weapon's release, and knocked the magazine across the floor. Dante crossed the distance before Luca could recover. He struck his uncle's wrist, pulled Elena behind him, and shielded her as Marco's team burst through the side doors. The warehouse erupted in shouting and flashing lights. Elena rushed to free her mother while Dante fought Luca near the edge of the loading platform. Vanessa grabbed the discarded gun magazine and ran toward a backup weapon hidden beneath a crate. Elena saw her before anyone else. She pushed her mother behind a steel column, seized the recorder from the floor, and climbed onto the platform. Vanessa! The woman turned. Elena held up the device. You wanted proof destroyed? Come take it. Vanessa abandoned the weapon and charged toward her. Elena waited until the last second, then stepped aside. Vanessa struck the railing and dropped the recorder. It landed below, still blinking. Police sirens sounded outside. Luca froze. Dante had sent the confession not to his own men, but directly to federal investigators and every major Chicago news station. It's over, Dante told him. Luca smiled strangely and pulled a hidden trigger from his coat. A mechanical alarm began screaming beneath the floor. Red lights flashed along the old chemical storage tanks. No, Luca said, it ends with all of us. The timer on Elena's phone reached 0, and a violent explosion tore through the far wall. Dante turned toward her as the platform collapsed between them. Elena reached for his hand, but the steel floor split open, and Dante disappeared into the smoke below. Dante! Elena screamed as the steel platform folded into the smoke, but instead of running from the flames, she dropped to her knees and crawled toward the broken edge. Below her, Dante hung from a twisted support beam with one hand, his injured side bleeding through his shirt while fire raced along the far wall. Get your mother out, he shouted. Elena looked toward the exit, where Marco was guiding her mother and his brother through falling debris, then back at the man who had entered the warehouse ready to sacrifice everything for her. All her life, people had treated her as someone who needed to become smaller, quieter, and easier to overlook. Dante had never asked her to shrink. Now she refused to abandon him. She wrapped a loose cable around her waist, anchored it to the railing, and lowered herself through the smoke. Elena, no! You said we go together, she answered. She reached him as the beam groaned beneath their weight. Dante tried to push her toward safety, but she caught his wrist with both hands. "Stop protecting me long enough to trust me." For the first time, the Mafia boss surrendered control. He let her pull, while Marco climbed down from the opposite side. Together, they dragged Dante onto the remaining platform seconds before the beam crashed into the fire below. Across the warehouse, Luca stumbled toward a service tunnel with the detonator still in his hand. Vanessa followed, crying that he had promised her power. Luca shoved her aside without hesitation. The betrayal finally broke whatever loyalty she had left. She seized his arm and screamed for the federal agents entering through the loading doors. Luca turned the detonator toward another tank, but Dante rose despite his wound and stepped between Luca and Elena. "It ends here," Dante said. Luca laughed. "You cannot build an empire around a weakness." Dante glanced back at Elena, soot covering her face, her full figure standing unbowed beside the mother she had protected and the evidence she had preserved. "She is the reason I finally know what strength looks like." Elena lifted the recorder from inside her coat. Before the platform collapsed, she had caught it and protected the device with her own body. Luca's confession, Vanessa's admission, and every threat made inside the warehouse had survived. Federal agents surrounded Luca. Vanessa surrendered and agreed to testify in exchange for protection, revealing the names of the officials her father had bribed. Luca reached for a hidden weapon, but Marco stopped him before he could fire. As agents led Luca away, the sprinkler system finally activated, pouring cold water through the smoke. Dante turned toward Elena, but his strength gave out. She caught him before he fell, lowering him carefully to the floor. His hand rose weakly to her cheek. "You came back for me. You sound surprised. People usually run when my world starts burning." Elena covered his hand with hers. "Maybe you were surrounded by the wrong people." 3 weeks later, sunlight filled the private garden of the Moretti estate. Luca and the Hale family faced federal charges, the stolen charity money had been returned, and Elena's father's name had been publicly cleared. Dante dissolved every business connected to Luca and created a legal medical foundation in Elena's father's honor, with Elena's mother receiving proper treatment without debt or hidden conditions. Elena refused Dante's offer to simply give her money. Instead, she accepted a position overseeing the foundation, where her honesty and sharp eye made powerful people nervous for all the right reasons. At the first public benefit, Elena entered the ballroom wearing a deep red dress, chosen because she loved it, not because it hid her body. Conversations paused, but this time she did not lower her gaze. Dante crossed the room toward her in a black suit, no longer hiding behind the cold mask everyone feared. Vanessa's former friends watched as he took Elena's hand in front of the cameras. "You don't have to prove anything to them," he murmured. "I know," Elena said with a smile. "I'm here because I want to be." Later, beneath warm garden lights, Dante returned the old red scarf her father had kept safe for 12 years. "I spent half my life believing love was another way for enemies to reach me," he said. Then the feared Mafia boss lowered himself onto one knee. Elena's breath caught. "You saved my life beside the river, saved it again at the gala, and saved the part of me I thought was already dead. I don't need you because I am helpless without you. I need you because beside you I finally know who I want to become." He opened a small velvet box. "Elena Rossi, will you choose me?" Tears filled her eyes, but they were no longer tears of shame. "Yes," she whispered. Dante placed the ring on her finger, rose and kissed her gently as her mother and Marco watched from the terrace. Elena had not changed her body, hidden her curves, or become someone else to deserve love. She had simply found a man powerful enough to defend her dignity and humble enough to recognize her strength. Dante had not lost his empire by choosing her. He had finally built one worth protecting. And as they stood together in the golden light, the woman everyone once overlooked became the heart of the only home the Mafia boss had ever trusted. Their story began with 3 desperate words, "I need you," but it ended with something stronger. "I choose you." Do you believe Elena saved Dante more deeply than he saved her? Share your answer in the comments and subscribe to the channel for more emotional Mafia boss stories where courage is seen, dignity is restored, and love chooses the person the world underestimated.